in on a wonderful Wednesday. The gang's all here. Dennis Philippi, Joseph Dank, Jason Munns will join us at some airport as he is on his way back home from San Antonio. It was a weird game last night. It was a weird ending. Honestly, all the joy, all the celebration took place in Birmingham. That was such a magical moment on Sunday. Haggerty took the game over and all that went into that. It reminded me seriously of those days in 2008 when I used to say these are the good old days, the mid and late O's. And then this one last night, I mean, Memphis had a 13-point lead. They couldn't pull away. The officiating was very uneven. And the ending was totally bizarre. I have never seen Penny Hardaway more PO'd than he was last night. What I don't think many people could see, because the game was over, but their staff got into it with the Memphis staff. And here's my kind of thought of that. I think it was a total misunderstanding. First of all, you did have a guy chirping who's I don't know if he's the third assistant or an ops guy, whoever he was for Texas San Antonio. Tall guy.
All these guys we've got on the bench now.
Yeah, well, you got 10 guys on your staff, right?
That's right, yeah.
I remember it was one guy when I first started watching college basketball.
Crazy.
Then they each had an assistant. Then it went to, two other guys, so a three-man staff. Now, Lord, you've got everybody, a psychiatrist, a nutritionist, your orthopedist. And we're talking college. We're not even talking the NBA. Anyway, I don't want to get sidetracked here. So Penny gets upset, rightfully so. There's it was 0.6. They made it 0.8. 0.6, they hit a nonsensical three, doesn't really matter, right? So Melender, their point guard, gets 3 more points. They get another 3.
Smurf, great name.
Yeah, and he's fast, man.
He sure is.
Anyway, so it's a 3-point game. Why would Memphis call the timeout? There's no reason Memphis would call a timeout.
And I don't think they had a timeout either.
They did. They had one.
Oh, did they?
They had one, and I think he was down to 1.
It didn't show on they must have had it wrong.
No,
on
he
ESPN Plus.
he did have one.
Okay.
If he didn't have one, now you got
See,
a real problem.
that's what I thought the issue was.
No.
I thought that this whole thing played out, and UTSA was saying, well, they don't have foul. If they call it or they don't have timeout. If they call timeout, you got to call it technical.
I am pretty sure he still had one in his pocket.
Okay, cool.
But Penny is going, why would I have called the timeout?
Yeah.
I don't need the timeout. He needs the timeout, which he did. He called the timeout. Now, why didn't he say, I called the timeout? Now, that's the interesting aspect, too. No one's brought that up. Why didn't Austin Claunch say, hey, man, you guys got that wrong. I said it. And they got a guy on their staff that's chirping the other way. Anyway, never seen Penny more upset. And he goes, and if you go back and listen to the postgame show, he goes, I said, no, sir, I did not. And he was pretty adamant. And then they just made it basically a dead ball and an inbound for the Tigers, which, ended the game finally. But when the game is over, Memphis is, you can really go either way, but it's a little longer to go opposite your bench through a tunnel all the way around. They were going to go toward the bucket that they were shooting at and go out that way because that's a little bit shorter. Well, there's a tradition that I don't think Penny knew. It's the first time we've ever played in that building. Nobody knew. Where they end up going to that particular hoop. I don't know why, but they do. It's away from their bench. And they do this thing, and if you're watching on TV, they do this. Every Texas thing has a hand deal. You got horns, you got the claw for Houston, you got guns for
SMU
Texas
has
Tech.
like the ponies.
SMU's got a hand thing. They all got hand things.
That's true.
So does Texas San Antonio. Theirs is they got their 2 hands out, and they do it like they're hitching a ride, I guess. I don't know. They're the runners, right? So they're going to stand and do that at that thing. And Memphis is trying to get out that way. And that big, tall guy, again, is making a big point about it. It was just so odd. And that got heated. And there was no celebration because you just clinched the number 1 seed. And you did get a share of the regular season. Penny thought, we got the tiebreak, it's over. I had to say on the postgame show, you've got a share of it now. Of course, you can get it outright if North Texas loses or you win against USF. It's in your hands, and I think they will win the regular season title. But it was bizarre. And then on top of that, coming home last night was shaky. It was one of the scariest landings. I don't know how many airplane trips I have taken.
Too many.
Thousands, okay? 1,000 at least. And I'm not sure. I've had some scary moments in the air that have been a little bit worse than this, but maybe not ever a landing that was. First of all, we came back. You're coming from the southwest, so we're coming over the Mississippi River. We're just south of downtown. You see the bridges look beautiful, by the way, from the air with the LED lights. And it was cloudy to the west of the river, but you could see the downtown area. We go up the river. I'm telling you, we go all the way to Cape Girardeau. I don't know if it was because of wind patterns. I don't know if it's because at 12:30 in the morning, there's a lot of FedEx flights going in and out, so you have to get into a pattern. But we go all the way up the river. I didn't see Cape Girardeau, but I bet it was there. And then we come back to land. And as we're coming back to land, the pilot is fighting big time wind. So the plane, as it gets lower and lower, and I'm saying we're maybe 400 or 500 feet above the airport now, the plane's wings are going up and down. I mean, it's going back and forth. I'm seeing, oh, geez, we're going to land and flip. And you got to keep your speed up in those landings. I call them a hot landing. I don't know what the technical term is. He comes in so fast and drops. And I mean, when we hit the ground, boom, you feel it, and then you go up in the air again and then came down. Then he applies those brakes. I mean, whew. So you never really felt the celebration yesterday that you should have. It was just so darn weird. We'll talk with Jason Munz about all of that in just a minute here or two. But kind of weird. And what else is weird is the American is in discussions. There's a meeting this coming week with ADs. It's got to be signed off by the president about playing 20 conference games next year. That kills Memphis. I can't imagine Memphis voted that way. I think it's really odd that Tim Pernetti is literally trying to force this through. He's trying to get his teams to schedule better. Playing each other at this point doesn't seem to me to be the answer. No. It's certainly not the answer for the University of Memphis. Now, Pernetti did throw this out, playing a challenge with the A-10 and the Mountain West. So if you played Boise, that's a good game. Yeah. We played that in the NIT. Mm-hmm. We've played that somewhere else.
NCAA.
Oh, NCAA.
Beat him to play
that's
Gonzaga.
Right. That's right. If you play the A-10, St. Louis, VCU, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
That's great. Play those two games. Don't make me play Rice again. Don't make me play UTSA in that crazy gym again. Now, that's just nuts. That does not help the conference. Doesn't help the leaders of the conference, not one iota. And so I hope this thing does not go through at all. I'm okay with the challenge. I don't want to play 20 conference games in this league. That makes no sense for the University of Memphis. All right, with all that said, always look forward to this time with my friend Dennis.
It's time for Dennis on Dave. Dennis on Dave. Dennis on Dave.
Welcome to Dennis on Dave.
All right, what you got?
I think you're a little shaken up by that landing last night.
It was crazy.
I would be.
Well, what size aircraft were you on?
Oh, it was a big one.
Yeah.
It was like the old days. This was a 737, had my whole row to myself. Fantastic. Loved it.
Wow. That's
except for the landing.
Yeah, I've had my share of exciting moments on airplanes. When the Saints were in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And I'm a big Saints fan.
Right.
I was flying in that day from Denver, and we took off from DIA. And I'm used to all the sounds. I've flown a lot, but I'm not a great flyer. Heard the flaps, heard the landing gear starting to retract.
That's always a good feeling.
And not.
No.
I kept hearing.
No.
So I lean over into the aisle and I look at the flight attendant with her back to the cockpit door, and she just slowly reaches up and grabs the phone and pulls it down. And then they announce that they can't retract the landing gear. So They're trying over and over. Finally, they do retract the landing gear, but then they announced that we're going back to Denver because of this issue. So they are then deploying.
Wait, you're already in New Orleans getting ready?
No. New Orleans has nothing to do with this story. I'm flying from Denver to Memphis.
Oh, okay.
But we are going back to Denver, and so they're deploying the landing gear back down.
Right.
Sitting next to a complete stranger, and as we're getting close to the runway, I just looked at him and I said, the next few seconds could be some of the most exciting of our lives. But it turned out we landed fine. Then we took off in the same aircraft, landed in Memphis just in time for me to drop off my suitcase, walk up the street, because I live in Cooper Young, walk up the street, and just in time for kickoff of the Saints Colts Super Bowl, which was one of the best days of my life, because my teams never, ever win championships. Except the Cardinals, but that was a tradition. Okay, I was at the Grizzlies-Knicks game on Friday night.
Yeah,
I haven't been to a Grizz game in a while. It's fun. It was exciting. We had great seats, but 3 losses in a row by a total of 5 points.
Tough
is just maddening.
Tough. And Ja, I don't know what the problem is there. Injuries, can't play.
It was his shot to win on Friday night. Yeah. Everything was built around him taking that shot, and he missed it. Yep. And it was maddening. It was just really, really frustrating. The last 3 games have been really, really frustrating. In the NBA, I've never seen this before. A coach that wants more penalties called. Steve Kerr wants the NBA to start calling traveling.
I think he's right.
Well, of course he's right. Everybody knows that, because now we feel that way because Memphis generally is a college-first town, and college refs call traveling. So
right.
Everybody in this
always,
town,
really, since I was a kid, so this is a long time ago.
Yeah.
The NBA always gave you an extra half step.
An extra half step, exactly right.
But now they're giving you a step and a half extra. Yeah. It's beyond reasonable.
Well, as Kerr said, I mean, they're not teaching their own refs to watch players' feet. And players are constantly picking up their pivot foot. They're constantly taking that extra step. And I used to defend the NBA on this and just go, well, no, they get another half a step. That's how it works. But because we're college fans first in Memphis, I am a pro sports fan first. I've always been more of a pro sports fan than a college sports fan. The teams of my college sucked. I mean, University of Charlotte never had anything meaningful.
Oh, yeah, Cornbread Maxwell.
Yeah, briefly, and I was like 6 years old when that happened. So I've always been first pro because it just makes sense when you talk about, like, in college you got 360 of what we think of as Division I schools, and you got 30 NBA teams. That's so less than a tenth of the number of college teams. So the best players in the world, obviously, are in the NBA, not in college. And everybody used to say all the time, in Memphis, well, I prefer college sports because they're playing for the passion. They're playing for the school that they love. They're playing for pride. Now they're playing for money. So there is no distinction anymore in between professional and college sports.
Hard to argue.
And I prefer the better athletes.
The other rules that should be changed, seriously, the travel thing is one thing. In either college or the pro, let me tell you a rule that never gets called anymore, and it matters. 3 seconds. 3 seconds never gets called. You got big guys hanging in the paint, trying to make a move in the paint, backing down a guy in the paint. They're in there for 5 seconds. It's supposed to be 3.
Oh, yeah, it's constant.
They never call that.
And one thing that also drives me crazy, just talking about fans, is when things go against the team for 2 possessions, especially pro teams, go against the team for two possessions, and suddenly people are screaming, call a timeout. To what end? These are professional athletes. What are you going to do? You're going to sit them down and go, okay, fellas, play better. Stop sucking. How about that? I mean, that's all I'm asking. You don't need to call a timeout just because you had 2 turnovers. These are professional athletes. There's no conversation to be had. Congratulations to LeBron James hitting the 50,000-point mark. In 28 games since turning 40, LeBron is averaging almost exactly the same number of points and shooting percentage as he did the last time he was MVP of the NBA in 2012-2013. At 40 years old, he's averaging almost exactly the same numbers since he turned 40.
When he was 28.
When it was that how old? Yeah, I'm sorry. It was my understanding there would be no math.
Oh, well, think about that. I've said this before. He's the greatest old athlete in history. There's only one guy that I could think that could be in his same conversation, Gordie Howe. The great hockey player from the Detroit Red Wings.
4 decades, 5 decades?
Yeah, he played, but he was playing with his son when he was in his 50s.
Yeah.
So that was pretty incredible. I think he was still really very good in his 40s. There's probably a pitcher or two that were in their 40s.
Nolan Ryan.
Put
Nolan Ryan in there.
But my God,
Roger Clemens
to be
played
MVP like at 40.
Yeah.
That's bizarre.
Well, the addition of Luka
in that game where you got to run.
Yeah, and the addition of Luka has been huge. I mean, they've won 7 in a row. Those two have obviously figured out incredible offensive rhythm. And what's really strange is playing with LeBron. Luka has started occasionally actually playing defense, which is very strange to see.
Well, he's working out, too. Did you see he did push-ups right before
He did 4 push-ups. I could do more push-ups than Luka could do. But I say, even though they are obviously they're way behind the Thunder, but I would not count the Lakers out at this point of winning the West. I really wouldn't.
They're not going to win the West.
They're
not going to catch Oak City, but they could finish second.
I'm saying they could. If they end up straight up against Oklahoma City, I think they could beat them.
Oh, you mean in a
I'm talking about going all the way.
Okay.
I'm saying that I think there's a good chance.
They're not going to catch them in the regular season.
No, but there's a good chance that they can come out of the West in the finals. I really think that's true. I mean, they're a really solid team.
They seem to be,
and they're a lot of fun to watch.
How about J.J. Redick? Nobody thought that was really going to work.
No, because nobody likes J.J. Redick.
Well, just think of this: how lucky. Seriously, how lucky are the Lakers that it went that way? I can't believe Danny Hurley would have been an NBA guy. And they wanted him.
Kyrie, of course, is out for the season. Boy, the Mavs. I'm surprised, really, they haven't already painted over Nico's parking space. Like, you don't work here anymore.
The visual of AD helping Kyrie off the court, I was like, oh, this is just a representation of what the season is for Dallas
symbolic
right
for
now.
sure.
I mean, in the finals last year, for heaven's sake.
And then they raised the prices 8.6%. How about that?
To pay for the players that they've got that can't play.
Here's my thing on this. I swear to you, I'm going to be a conspiracy theorist here. I believe this though. They can't be that stupid. Either they planned this at the very beginning of the year and they kept it mum, just like they did with the Doncic trade, or they're going, we got so many people that are mad that they're so PO'd that we traded Luka. Here's a marketing strategy. We're going to say we're going to raise prices, and then we're going to beg for forgiveness, and we're going to lower all the prices just to try to make amends and let everybody forget about what bad guys we are, because we're going to end up saying, we were wrong, sorry, we probably shouldn't have traded Luka, and we're going to give you guys lower prices next year. That's the only thing I can think of. Because raising the prices after you PO'd everybody
so the lower
is
prices
dumb.
Next year would be the price that it was before they raised the price? So it would be the same price?
No, it would be.
The same price would be the lower price.
They would make it lower.
Well, I don't know. We're living in an upside-down world. When John Cena is a heel in wrestling, we're in an upside-down world. It's just not right. John Cena cannot be a bad guy. He's the king of Make-A-Wish.
Anybody in wrestling can be. Look, they made Jerry the King Lawler a heel every once in a while. Come on. It's the nature of the game.
John Cena can't be. It's an upside-down world. And also, who cares if Pete Rose is allowed into the Hall of Fame? The lifetime ban lasted his lifetime.
That's right. It's over.
He's dead.
Yes.
Who cares?
That's right.
I looked it up to see if when you get in the Hall of Fame, if you get money. You don't get a penny. All you get to do is say you're a Hall of Famer.
Well, you
which
get
Pete
the
Rose can't
reward of
do
that.
Because he's dead.
Right.
So who cares? The lifetime ban was a lifetime ban.
That's all the point. I said this many, many, many years ago. As soon as he dies, he should be allowed in. Because what he did on the field was worthy of unanimity of getting in the Hall. What he did after he was a player to put the credibility of the game on the line, that was criminal. That's why he never got in. He can't get the reward of being in, but he deserves to be in now. So put him in.
I always said as soon as the day he assumes room temperature, let him in the Hall of Fame. Yeah. That's fine.
Well, you just put it the best way possible. I never really thought of it in those terms. Lifetime ban.
Lifetime ban.
He's no longer in life. It
lasted his lifetime.
Yeah.
He shouldn't have been allowed in the Hall of Fame for his haircut alone. He had arguably the worst haircut in baseball history. I think he cut his own hair.
No, he had somebody with a bowl. They used a bowl.
That's all it would have taken.
That's what it did.
But he was a class individual. That's the important thing.
Yeah,
is that
right.
Petey was always classy.
What class would be the question?
I love women's tennis. By the way, I don't know if I've ever mentioned this. I'm a big women's tennis fan. And
Pagula?
They had. I love. What?
Pagula.
Is that what you're saying? Yeah,
what she
Jessica
did?
Pagula.
Yeah.
Yeah, you heard about this?
With the Jet?
Yeah.
I'm
sorry, I didn't know. I didn't know if
you know what her
you guys
father
covered
owns,
it.
don't you?
The Sabres and the Bills.
Yes.
Yeah, so when I first saw
she's
it.
worth billions.
Because she hung around for the finals. She'd been eliminated in the tournament, but she hung around for the finals, and then they had to get to Indian Wells in California.
Correct.
They would have been traveling like 9 hours minimum to get there.
I think it was like 13.
And she's like, that's okay. We'll just take Dad's jet.
Right.
And she flew them to Indian Wells.
Do you know how much money she's made on her own? Seriously. She's only won
$17 million.
$17 million.
But that's not enough to buy a jet.
It's enough to rent a jet.
It is enough to rent
There
a
you
jet.
go.
All right, that's about it for me.
All right, that's always good. Good stuff for sure. We will see you next Wednesday. I am certain of that. Always enjoy that. We got to take a break. Sitting in the Family Leisure Studio, where the first ever preseason pool spa patio event is hot and heavy. Right there at I-40 and Wooden Road. Now listen to this. Pools under $2,000. Spas under $3,000. Cold plunge and swim spas. Price to move. Patio furniture sets. State of the art. They start at under $800. Ladies and gentlemen, go see my friends and register to win a free pool, spa, or patio set. Stop by today. Sign up. It's all there for you. I-40 and Wooden Road, Family Leisure. Joe Denk standing by. He's all set to go. Man, we got a lot to talk about. The business of sports is next.
Broadcasting from the Family Leisure Studio, we are Sports 56 and 98.5 FM.
Briggs Powder Coating for a beautiful finish every time. Briggs Powder Coating specializes in automotive, ornamental, residential, and industrial coating. With two conveyor lines and the largest batch ovens in the Mid-South, Briggs can accommodate all of your powder coating needs. Locally owned and operated since 2002, Briggs Powder Coating will customize a beautiful finish just for you. Drop by or call to see how Briggs Powder Coating can bring color to your life. 901-367-771 or BriggsPowderCoating.com.
Hey, not to be dramatic, but you should smell this. It smells so good.
Whoa, that's quite the reaction to mixing and matching Gain scents. Let's hear another from Ashley, who mixed Gain products and went,
I'm so excited.
yes, you are. What about you, Isaiah?
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. And Emily summed it up like so.
It is just chef's kiss.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Mix, match, more happy with Gain.
This is Sheldon Rosengarten with Mark's Binsdorf Realtors. I'm often called Shell Done because I sell homes and work with buyers and I get the job done. There are 7 keys to successfully selling your home quickly at a great price. First, call me. I do my research and advise you on preparation, presentation, and proper pricing that gets you the activity to get the best price. Follow my advice and it can happen. I did mention 7 keys to a successful sale, didn't I? Well, if you use the first key, calling or emailing me, you really don't need the next 6 keys. Remember, that's Sheldon Rosengarten at 483-0546 or MemphisRelocate.com. If you don't need me now, write it down for later or for a friend. That's Sheldon at 483-0546 at MemphisRelocate.com. Do it now, and who knows, you may hear your home advertised here. Remember, as bad a golfer as I am, when selling homes, Sheldon gets it done.
You get the best of Memphis for lunch and dinner at Elwood Shack. Choose from house pastrami, corned beef, smoked turkey, roast beef, roast pork, beef brisket, and pulled shoulders, all made in-house. Elwood's fresh baked bread is delivered daily only in our bakery in Cordova, and all Elwood's cakes and sweet treats come from Frost Bakery. Open daily for lunch and dinner at Elwood Shack on Summer in the Lowe's parking lot. And the newest Elwood's at 4045 in Boston. You are ready. Get the best of Memphis or anywhere else at Elwood Shack.
Tigers should be dancing. You want to celebrate? Here's another way to celebrate. I know, spirits like from the spirit shop, but what I'm thinking about is Dinstles. I'm thinking about chocolate-covered strawberry. The sweetness of that gives me energy. Dance a little bit more. Oh, yeah. 5 locations. You know where they are. In the burbs, Collierville and Germantown, downtown, a quaint little cool store. Then you've got where they make it on Pleasant View. You got it in my neck of the woods, Laurelwood. There's a Dinstles for you somewhere. Strawberries, pineapple, grapes, all the fruit. Just fantastic, dipped in that great chocolate. Check out the fudge. You know it has won a world award as the best fudge. That's how good it is. And, of course, there's Cashew Crunch. Turtlettes, I love those two both. I don't know which one I love more. I just know Cashew Crunch is probably the most unique taste that you can't get in every town. I mean, that's unique to Dinstles. We just know. Dinstles, it's the sweetest thing in Memphis. Joe Denk joins us. So the ACC made a deal with their schools, but really they made the deal with Florida State and Clemson so that they would drop lawsuits and that there would be peace in that conference where it is mainly designed for Clemson and Florida State to get more money, but it's going to be based on ratings, wins. So there's a formula for football anyway, where the schools that win the most will end up getting the bulk of the money. 40% is going to be divvied out of their total cash evenly, and then 60% will be divvied out a different way. Good thing, bad thing, does this close the chapter on that league falling apart? Good morning, Joe.
Good morning, David. Yeah, I think this was a big deal. This came down yesterday in terms of being signed off. And really, truly, the interesting thing here is the appearance, at the very least, of stability now in that league. And because it was touch and go. It was
for
it
5
was
years anyway.
Well, but that's a lifetime in these deals.
Yeah.
I mean, these days. But, you know, the interesting thing, the commissioner of the league, Jim Phillips, said, this allows us to focus on our collective future with Florida State and UNC united in an 18-member conference. So, more importantly for us here, right, this tells me that at least for the period we're talking about, the next 5 years, the ACC sounds like it's ready to stand pat, and that eliminates any expansion, which means there's maybe one less place for Memphis to aspire to go.
I suspect that you are right here, but I'm not going to say for all 5 years. I think after 3 years of this deal, as I read it, the penalty for leaving is greatly diminished. They've already diminished part of that as part of this deal, I believe. So now it's $150 million if you wanted to get out. I think in 3 years it's down to $75 million, which if they got into the Big Ten, if they got into the SEC, that would be easily absorbed if they became full members right off the bat. So I'm going to say I think it locks everything in for the next 3 years. That would be my perception.
My read is it doesn't get to $75 million until 2031.
Oh, I thought it was 3 years from now.
What happens before that is some TV deals do come up, and that is interesting. You know, the whole thing was the ACC signed this long-term deal
right
with ESPN through 2036, and
right.
They signed that like 10 years ago. ESPN just opted to renew that. That's what brought this all to a head, because ESPN had the ability to stay in that deal and keep it in place till 2036, and they exercised their option. That did tie all these grant of rights up until 2036, and that incented Clemson and Florida State, I think, to come to the table and come to this settlement. But the point is now, so even if you're reduced to $75 million, and frankly, if it's 3 or 5 years, that's still flirting with somewhere between doubling what you're getting, or at least 70% of what you're getting on an annualized basis to pay just to get out. I mean, their deal right now is somewhere around $38 million.
Right.
For TV alone, plus the other things you're getting in the conference revenue. So it's maybe a $45 million.
That's right.
So you're going to pay $75 to get out?
Oh, wait a second. What are you getting from the Big Ten? Those schools are going to get $100 million.
But now think about, but I get that. But where is...
So if you're getting $60 million more a year...
But
and you're paying $75 million to get out...
Well, it
seems to me to make
still takes 4 or 5 years to get it still takes 4 or 5 years to get that 75 back. But the point remains, the Big Ten has to want them.
True.
Or somebody needs to want them.
I agree.
And as strong as Florida State was, and then as willing it appeared that Clemson was for the last year to do this, clearly nobody necessarily said do everything you can to get out because we're dying to have you.
Right.
And I think what you're starting to see, and I don't know how you view this, we've talked a little bit about this. Do you have a better path to the playoffs in an 18-team Big Ten?
No.
Than you do as a team in the ACC right now. I mean, the consolidation and moving into these monsters, I don't know that that's the play.
Let me go back to your original premise here, too, and that is, it's clear to me neither of the two leagues that really matter in all of this, that make it more attractive for a school to leave a conference, we're all that interested. Clemson is the better of the two overall in terms of winning over the last 15 years in both sports. Florida State, what leverage have they got? They haven't been a good basketball power in years. Now they're getting rid of their coach, Leonard Hamilton. Maybe he can resurrect that a little bit. Their football, they've had one good year with Mike Norvell.
I know.
So how valuable is, after last year, how valuable is all of that? So I don't think they have anywhere to go. I think it's a major win for both of them because they are in line now to make more money than they were before. They're not going to get Big Ten or SEC money, but they're getting good money, and it's going to be better than everybody else. What kind of feeling do you have if you're in that conference, if you're Wake Forest? How about even if you're Duke, which brings you all this prestige in basketball? You're not getting anything out of that? I mean, to me, it's an unholy alliance, but we'll see how it is.
Well, I do think part of the revenue share based on performance applies to basketball, but not at the level it does in football.
No.
2 final quick points. Number one, how could Clemson forget that in the present configuration and as a member of the ACC, they just played in the playoff? They made it, so they can't complain too much. Right? Secondly, as it now relates to these Power Fours, remember, whatever they're making, whoever you bring in
gets a piece of the pie.
But they better bring value equal to or greater than the existing value of that slice of pie.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, why would you want to divide the pie by 1 or 2 more slices?
Totally agree with that.
And that's the big.
That's the problem for Memphis.
That's the problem for Memphis.
I get
Can
that.
they? Okay, so that's the end of the discussion.
But seriously, I mean, if you're looking, let's just say Wake Forest, prestigious school, great school, but does Memphis bring a better, at this point, athletic brand? I think they do.
Then Wake Forest to the ACC.
Well, I'm just saying to you, You're talking about brand and what you bring.
Matters. Context matters.
I'm just saying, if you're looking at value, compare Memphis to Wake Forest. Let's go with another lower level ACC school. They're just geographically in a better position. Now, I heard somebody say, and I can't remember who it was, where they went wrong was they brought in those West Coast schools. They should have brought Memphis in. They had SMU. Of course, SMU bought their way in. But if you're looking for brand, I mean, maybe I'm looking at it from just a totally Memphis viewpoint.
Right.
But I think if you look at athletic success over the last 10 years, and I know there were some, rough years with football prior to that, but really, Memphis has been a decent football school since the culture was changed by Justin Fuente. That's years ago now. They've got, 11 straight years you're going to a bowl. Basketball has always been darn good, except for Tubby Smith's years.
Look, I mean, you can make a strong case within the context of Memphis, and we're in Memphis,
right?
Okay, I would only say this: I think if that ACC would not have faced a perceived threat by Florida State and Clemson leaving, they would not even have considered adding Stanford or Cal.
I buy that too, because they did think they had big problems there.
There you go.
So the Grizz and WMC and FanDuel Sports and the future there. We know 5 games over-the-air TV with WMC this year. Is this a peek into the future? And my question for you is this going to be on, what do they call it, Bounce or Bubble or whatever, the Channel 5.2? Is that going to be that particular station, or in the future they're not going to put 60 games on Channel 5 and go up against NBC programming?
No, they can't do that. But look, this is a big deal. Memphis finally got involved in this, and it was something that we had been watching for a while. Memphis now joins markets like Charlotte, Indianapolis, Minneapolis, Detroit, and Milwaukee, where they're doing a 5-game simulcast package with the FanDuel Sports on an over-the-air broadcaster. This is the result of the diminished role that the regional sports networks are able to play in the marketplace right now. That's due to cord cutting and the reduced number of subscribers they have. That's also due to some very impressive performance in terms of viewership when these games go over the air. Now, there are at least 4 teams in the league that have completely gone away from the cable regional sports network model. That includes Dallas, New Orleans, and Utah. Now, in the cases of those markets and Portland as well, all of those games in those markets are on free over-the-air television. The full 70 or 80 games, depending on how many times you appear on a national broadcast. Those are the only games not in these packages. Now, here's one other interesting thing I want to say. Portland, not necessarily the marquee lineup, not necessarily a hot team. Anything else? Their first year on an over-the-air broadcast station for their entire games, ratings are up 64%.
Well, just because they can reach more viewers. It's there for everybody. You don't have to buy it. Okay, here's my question. I understand why the Grizzlies would love this. And by the way, they're getting free marketing in Knoxville and in Nashville off of this. Mm-hmm. I don't know for sure how this works for FanDuel, except that now they have more eyeballs on those 5 games, that they're the ones selling the advertising, and maybe they get more money per spot. Where does Channel 5 make their money? How does that all work out with FanDuel and WMC?
Well, we don't know the specifics of the deal, but Channel 5 is not going to run 5 games in prime time without having some inventory to sell. And so you have to believe there's something in it for them, or they wouldn't be doing it. Now, the interesting play here is part of the NBA deal moves over to NBC starting next season. So this is a nice little platform for the folks at WMC to start having some local NBA here, maybe continuing with some type of a partial schedule. I think what we're going to see is the continued reduced role of the regional sports network, and they're going to hope for local TV deals to help replace some of those lost dollars at the RSN level. It'll be interesting to see how far local broadcast companies can go in the rights fee game, because that's where it gets very difficult.
Yeah, and that's where the old cable systems, when you were on a tier getting a subscription, you could pay teams a lot of money. I'm sure that the Grizzlies were doing decent with FanDuel, but now, like, we get the Grizzlies on with FanDuel on a separate sports tier that we're paying. What are we paying? $20 a month for that?
Well, you get a $9 charge simply for the
Sports
RSN
tier.
itself, and then the tier is another $9. So you might make the case that it's an $18 hit. But think about this for one quick second. 15 years ago, approximately, cable TV penetration by percent of TV households in America was over 70%. Today, it's under 50%. And so those RSNs were collecting per subscriber fees in the markets in which they operated. And we know what it was because they're charging us $9 for it, right? So, you take 9 times X times 12, it was real money.
Yeah.
Now reduce it by 30 or 40 points.
Yeah, right.
It's a big deal.
Big deal.
Big deal.
Big deal. All right. Last thing, and next week we're going to talk about the arena renovation, and we're going to talk about the Redbirds, the Cards, Diamond Baseball. I want to get into all of that. But I do want to end this with the Mavericks. What in the world are they thinking? After all this disaster, people so angry about shipping Luka out, and then ironically they lose Kyrie Irving for the year. AD is, who knows when he's going to play, and they're raising ticket prices 8.6%. What in the world are they thinking?
Well, what they may be thinking is this: we got to figure out a way to pay for this team we just bought, because Mark Cuban sold this team just over a year ago. He sold just over 70% of it to the Adelson and Dumont families. Now, these folks own the Sands Hotel and Casinos. They're Las Vegas based.
Right.
Now, the idea there, we believe, and it's been reported, is that the casino owners, who now own this NBA team in Dallas, want very much for gaming to be legalized in Texas and have this basketball team become the centerpiece of a huge entertainment and gaming development in Dallas. Now, the flip side,
and they
to
need
all of
legislation from the Texas
They
legislature to do it.
need legislative relief and legalization of that. The fact that they are Vegas-based, and everybody keeps talking about Vegas being an NBA market, gives them a little interesting leverage point now to give us our deal, or we're going someplace.
Well, the league would have to approve that. I don't see that happening. This team won a championship in Dallas. This is a team that's always drawn well in Dallas. They were in the finals a year ago, and the owners stand to make, $6 billion a franchise if they move one into Vegas, if they put an expansion team in there. I don't see them giving that up. And I don't see this group paying the league $6 billion to move to Vegas.
All we know is this: the deal that makes the most money for the league and the owners is the deal that will be accepted.
Now that part I agree with. Lots to talk about next week. Always enjoy seeing you. Thank you, Joe. We got to take a break. When we come back, somewhere in this country, Jason Munz is flying home from San Antonio. He's coming from an airport to talk Tigers in just a minute.
Be sure to follow us at Sports 56 WHBQ on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube to watch live video of our shows. Stay up to date with station events and have chances to win prizes. Don't miss out on anything that's going on. Follow us at Sports 56 WHBQ.
Tiger Nation, Memphis men's basketball returns to FedEx Forum Friday, March 7th at 8 when the Tigers welcome South Florida to Bluff City for their season finale. It's senior night as we'll honor 5 seniors prior to the game. A special halftime performance from the Palm and Ambush Crew alumni. And one lucky student will take a half-court shot for a chance at $10,000. It's time to stand up, Memphis, and cheer on your first-place Tigers. Be sure to get your tickets now at GoTigersGo.com.
Hey guys, Jason and Mike from Fox Sports Nights. You want to lose weight?
Want to look and feel 10 years younger?
With no food prep, no yo-yoing, no pills, no gym.
And no side effects. Life-changing is how I'd describe it. PhD weight loss and nutrition. We started PhD in January. As of this week, I'm down 30 pounds.
I've dropped over 25 pounds and 6 inches off my belt, and if we can do it...
It's easy. They create a tailored nutritional plan all for you. You'll learn how to eat. They provide your food at no extra cost, weekly accountability, support, and weigh-ins with your nutritionist all over the phone.
Limited offer. Mention my name, Jason, and get 2 free weeks added to your weight loss program. When you fully commit, you'll receive 15% off your weight loss program and 15% off your energy supplement bundle. And your program will be backed by PhD's Get Results or Get Your Money Back guarantee.
Give them a call, 864-502-1777. That's 864-502-1777. Or go to myphdweightloss.com. That's myphdweightloss.com.
myphdweightloss.com.
Nestled in the heart of East Memphis, located corner of Park and Cherry, is a beautiful residential neighborhood. I'm here at Town Village Audubon Park interviewing a new resident, Carolyn. Share with us why you chose Town Village.
Well, if your parents or special friends need to make that big move, let me share with you my experience. It was tough for me to leave home, but then I discovered Town Village. I would like to highly recommend Town Village to you and your loved ones. After looking at all the amenities and meeting all the people and the staff, I was hooked. From restaurant, bistro, 3 meals per day, housekeeping, transportation, security, health care, physical therapy, exercise room, and even a heated pool and spa. Come see us and make your new home in Town Village.
Visit us and call Daniel at Town Village Audubon Park at 901-374-7342. There's no place like home, Town Village.
We got the answer. Our man Munzie is in Houston. I think he's playing boards in about 15, 20 minutes. Good morning, Munzie. How are you? And have you ever seen a weirder way a game ended and literally you clinch the number 1 seed, you clinch a share of the championship of the regular season of the American, and there was literally 180 from the joy we saw in Birmingham. I thought last night was very odd the way it ended.
There was so much to celebrate last night, Wolo, but that as things devolve in the last 10 seconds, like that's the only way I can think of describing. There was completely devolved from where, of course, things were tense and dicey there for much of the last, 6 or 8 minutes of the game. Like, did you know that Memphis made 1 field goal over the last 9 minutes and change of the game? 1 field goal.
What? Now that you say that, yes, it makes sense to me. Haggerty was hitting all those free throws, and that's what really sealed the game, just like he elevated his game to win the game in Birmingham. He's obviously player of the year, but it was so weird. What was really weird, honestly, was that UTSA contributed to that victory in a lot of different ways, particularly shot selection. That team played about as stupid a finishing basketball strategy that I've ever seen.
It was. I think that's what kept them in the game, and what ultimately took them out of the game is the fact that they were playing like they had nothing to lose. Like that last 5 minutes or so where they missed 5 shots in a row that could have put them up. Like Memphis was up by 2 points. UTSA had 5 different looks at the basket that if one of them goes in, they take the lead.
So if Memphis scored 1 field goal in the last 6 minutes,
not 9 minutes.
9 minutes.
Change.
Wow.
Yeah.
How many did Texas San Antonio hit?
I'd have to go back and look at that, but I think it was quite a few. I mean, that was how they got back into the game. Because Memphis was up by 10 or 12 at one point, kind of.
Well, they were up 13 at the max.
Yeah, a decent way into the second half, and then UTSA starts chipping away at it. Memphis starts committing turnovers, and UTSA capitalizes. And but then UTSA, you could call it. You could say they got cold, but you could also say that they were just playing recklessly inside those last 3 or 4 minutes or whatever it was, when they missed all 5 shots that they took that would have given them the lead or at least tied the game. You had all that stuff, and then you had all the stuff that happened inside the last 10 seconds where, there was a timeout called and the referee said that Penny called it, but Penny said, absolutely not. I did not call it because, number one, Memphis is up 4 with the ball. Nobody in their right mind is calling a timeout in that situation. And secondly, Memphis did not have any timeouts left to take. And that's why
I was not sure. I thought he had one in his pocket, but so that would have been a technical if he had called it.
That's why he was so upset.
Right.
That is what got him so hot. From what I understand, the referee went over to him and said, "Hey, you called the timeout. I got to give you a tech." And that's when Penny lost it. And finally, I don't know if that convinced the referee to, change his call, or something else did, or some combination of things caused him to back down. But somehow the referee was convinced to just make it a dead ball and take it out of bounds.
Here's what I'd like to know. Austin Claunch called that timeout.
Yeah, of course.
You did not see Austin Claunch go, hey, I called it. He didn't say that. So, really, you got to wonder about his integrity.
Well, I mean, yes, you could say that, but you could also say, he's trying to win a basketball game. Why?
By hook or by crook, huh?
Right. But they had just hit a 3-pointer to cut it to 2 with 0.8 seconds left in the game on the clock. Of course, he's the one who called the timeout. That is what you do in that situation.
Right.
You're the team that's behind you. You're the one that calls the timeout. So, anyway, and then you had when play finally resumed, you had P.J. Haggerty get fouled and no time comes off the clock, and I think that upset Penny.
And then they did take 0.3 off because it was 0.8 to 0.5. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then of course you had the tensions were starting to get really high, and once the game finally ended, there was a confrontation. Mild confrontation.
That to me was a misunderstanding where that's where Texas San Antonio does their little hand thing where they're, the Roadrunner sign, because every Texas school's got a hand thing. And I don't know why they do it at that rim when the team's trying to get out that way. That was odd, but that's why that confrontation was going on.
Yeah, but the point is, there was so much to celebrate, and it just kind of got, sidetracked a little bit by just these weird circumstances. I don't know that I've ever covered a sporting event with all of that sort of stuff packed into it. The way that was.
Well, I'm not sure I've ever seen where you clinch the number 1 seed in the tournament and a share of the title, and put yourself in position to win the thing outright, and there's no celebration because everybody's upset. That was bizarre in its own right. Okay, so now you've got that. You've got the tournament that's looming. You got one more game to play Friday. You get a whole big rest for a week after that. What kind of seeding do you think that portends now for the Tigers in the NCAA? Will we see any movement in a good way for the Tigers?
I don't think so yet. Last night Memphis dropped in Ken Palm. I think it was from 47 to 50, and they dropped in the net a couple of spots in the net today. And it's just as long as that sort of stuff is still happening, it's just going to be you know, and we're trusting the bracketologists here. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know any better than the next person.
Yeah. Do you trust Andy Katz, who works for the NCAA? Because you see where he's got Memphis?
No.
He's got Memphis as an 8 seed playing in the bracket with Auburn. I'm trying to remember who the 9 was, but it's an 8-9 game followed by Auburn.
Well, I was going to say, if you were to just ask me if I trust his prediction, I typically don't. He's not a bracketologist.
Right.
You know what I mean?
But he works for the NCAA. That's what worries me.
Utah State is who he has Memphis playing.
Utah State followed by Auburn. That's crazy stupid. You had him in your last prediction column getting possibly to 5. Right now, I'm praying for 6. That would work okay.
I think 6 is the most likely scenario. I think 5 would be, the reason I say 5 is because I don't think it's literally out of the question. I don't think it is literally impossible for Memphis to get there. Now, I do think it is a long shot, a very long shot, especially given the way they played last night. They're losing, these games where they don't particularly play well and affects their predicted metrics. Like, these are opportunities for them to make up some of that ground, that seeding ground, and they're just, even though they won at UAB and it's a quad 2 and everything else, it wasn't super clean. And then last night certainly wasn't.
Well, last night, turnovers. How about 22 turnovers, 10 by your primary ball handler, 6 Haggerty, 4 Hunter. That's troubling, and it looks like I never mentioned this earlier. Dante Harris, high ankle sprain. I watched him try to go from the bus to the airplane on the tarmac, and honestly, he was going to try to walk without crutches. He couldn't do it. So I do not think he is back for the tournament. I don't know about the NCAA, but I'd be surprised if he was able to go for the conference tournament. Last thing, real quick, where do you think the conference tournament will move? Any insight on that? We know this is the last year in Fort Worth.
I did talk to Tim Fernetti in Birmingham, and that was one of the things that I asked him. And, because I was hearing that he was trying, that the league was striving to have some sort of formal announcement on that next week at the conference tournament.
They need to.
It does not sound like that is going to happen. He
really?
says that, he says his goal is now to have something announced during the NCAA tournament. I think they've got it narrowed down, though, to roughly 3 sites. He said that he's still weighing some options. Like, he said it's still on the table. It doesn't have to have the men and the women at the same site. And that's, so, they're still kind of working through that. Maybe they keep them together. Maybe they separate them. But I think it's probably narrowed down to 3 sites, and I think Memphis is one of them. But we do not yet know anything official.
Safe travels, my friend, as always. We'll see you Friday, just a couple of days from now, at FedEx Forum for late night, 8 o'clock. With senior night and everything else, USF will be in town. Safe travels, buddy.
Okay. Thank you, Wolo.
That's our man from the Commercial Appeal. That is Jason Munz. He's brought to you by Southern Security. Need cash? Refinance your auto loan with Southern Security. You'll have no payment for 60 days. Southern Security will finance up to 115% of the current value of your vehicle, and that's for up to 72 months. To find out how to put more cash in your pocket, call our member service team. You can talk to a human at 901-452-7900, or you can go the more modern way, apply on the website at southernsecurity.org. Southern Security, a proud supporter of U of M Athletics and 901 Women. Southern Security, been around 75 years. They're your home team credit union, and they're federally insured by NCUA. Johnny Radio's right around the corner. We'll be back tomorrow right here. Have a great day, everybody.